I'm Ava, 32, a graphic designer who's clawed her way to a decent life in a small coastal town in North Carolina. My days are spent sketching logos, tweaking brand campaigns, and sipping coffee on my porch, watching the Atlantic roll in. I've built a freelance business from scratch, something I'm damn proud of, especially after growing up in a house where money was always tight and emotions ran high. My mom was the glue, always baking cookies and smoothing over arguments. But my dad? He was a storm waiting to break. A mechanic with a quick laugh and a quicker temper, he started unraveling after the divorce when I was a teenager. The bottle became his best friend, and by the time I was in college, he'd lost his shop to debt and bad choices. I swore I'd never let his chaos define me, but some promises are harder to keep than others. Right now, my focus is on my little sister, Chloe. She's 27, a third-grade teacher with a heart bigger than this town, and she's about to marry Nate, her high school sweetheart who's now a firefighter. Chloe's been dreaming of this wedding since she was a kid, sketching dresses in her notebook and talking about a day where our fractured family could come together. I'm her maid of honor, which means I'm neck-deep in floral arrangements, seating charts, and trying to keep her sane. But there's a shadow hanging over it all. Our dad. Ever since the divorce, he's been a mess, drowning in whiskey and regrets. And then there's Vanessa, his new girlfriend, who showed up out of nowhere a year ago, all charm and sharp edges. She calls herself a real estate agent, but something about her doesn't add up. The way she clings to Dad, whispering in his ear, sets my teeth on edge. One morning, while Chloe and I were at a local flower shop, surrounded by peonies and roses, she grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with worry. "Ava, do you think Dad will actually show up sober?" Her voice was small, like she was afraid of the answer. I forced a smile, tucking a strand of her dark hair behind her ear.
"I hope so, sis."
"For you, I really do." But deep down, my stomach twisted. Hope wasn't enough when it came to Dad. I'd seen him stumble through too many promises, his apologies slurred and empty. Chloe deserved better than that, and I'd move mountains to make sure her day was perfect. My boyfriend, Micah, has been my rock through all this. He's a software developer, calm and steady, with a dry sense of humor that pulls me back from the edge. That night, as we sat on my couch, me ranting about Vanessa's fake smile and Dad's latest bar tab, he squeezed my hand. "Ava, you can't control everything. Focus on Chloe." I sighed, leaning into him. "I know, but if Dad screws this up, I'll never forgive him." Micah just nodded, letting me vent, but I could tell he was worried too. The wedding was a week away, and I felt like I was juggling glass, one wrong move, and it'd all shatter. The closer we got to the big day, the more I felt like I was playing referee instead of maid of honor. Dad would call, half drunk, promising to behave, while Vanessa's texts about the guest list were oddly pushy, like she was angling for control. My best friend, Harper, a journalist who can sniff out a story like a bloodhound, picked up on my unease when we met for coffee at a local diner. "What's the deal with Vanessa?" she asked, stirring her latte, her eyes sharp. I glanced around, lowering my voice. "She's too cozy with Dad, Harper. I overheard her on the phone talking about some big deal closing soon. It's sketchy." Harper's eyebrows shot up. "You think she's playing him?" I shrugged, my gut churning. "I don't know, but I'm gonna find out." That conversation lit a fire in me. Late nights, I'd scroll through Vanessa's social media, all glossy photos and vague posts about new ventures. I called a couple of Dad's old buddies, fishing for info, but got nothing concrete. Still, the pieces weren't fitting together, and it was driving me crazy. I wanted to believe Dad could pull it together for Chloe, but Vanessa's presence felt like a ticking time bomb. Little did I know, we were all headed for an explosion nobody could have predicted. The week before Chloe's wedding felt like walking a tightrope. I was juggling vendor calls, dress fittings, and my own growing dread about Dad and Vanessa. Chloe was a bundle of nerves, her usual optimism fraying at the edges. One afternoon, as we sat on her living room floor, surrounded by RSVP cards, she looked up at me, her eyes glassy. "Ava, what if Dad ruins everything? I just want one day where we're all happy." Her voice cracked, and it hit me like a punch. Chloe had always been the one holding out hope for Dad, even when he'd stumble home reeking of liquor or forget her birthday. I hugged her tight, my throat burning. "I've got you, Chloe. Nothing's gonna mess this up, I promise." But as I said it, my mind was racing. How could I keep that promise when Vanessa was in the picture? Harper, and I started digging deeper. She used her journalist contacts to poke around Vanessa's so-called real estate business. One night, over takeout at my place, she slid her laptop toward me. "Look at this. Vanessa's linked to a shady LLC that's been flagged for questionable property deals." My heart sank as I scanned the screen. Vague records, a few complaints about misleading contracts. Nothing solid, but enough to make my skin crawl. "She's up to something, Harper. And Dad's too far gone to see it." Harper nodded, her jaw tight. "We need more. I'll keep looking." I spent the next few nights making discreet calls, even reaching out to an old friend of Dad's who'd worked with him at the garage. He didn't know much, just that Vanessa had Dad wrapped around her finger, blowing through his savings like it was nothing. The day before the wedding, Chloe and I were at the beachfront venue, a gorgeous spot with white tents and fairy lights overlooking the ocean. We were checking table settings when Dad and Vanessa rolled up unannounced. Chloe's face lit up, and she ran to hug him. "Daddy," she squealed, like she was 10 again. I stayed back, watching Vanessa's eyes dart around, taking in the setup like she was casing the place. Dad, already swaying slightly slurred. My little girl, all grown up. My stomach twisted. He was half in the bag already. Vanessa shot me a smug look, looping her arm through his. "Let's check out the open bar, hon," she purred, steering him away. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to call her out right there. For Chloe's sake, I bit my tongue, but the air felt heavy, like a storm was rolling in off the coast. That night, as I lay in bed, Micah's arm around me, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of disaster. "You're doing everything you can," he murmured, sensing my restlessness. "Tomorrow's about Chloe and Nate.
Focus on that."
I nodded, but my mind was spinning. I'd promised Chloe her perfect day, but with Dad and Vanessa in the mix, I wasn't sure I could deliver. All I could do was brace myself for whatever came next. The wedding day dawned bright, the North Carolina sun glinting off the ocean, making the beachfront venue look like something out of a magazine. Chloe was radiant in her lace dress, her smile wide as she walked down the aisle toward Nate. For a moment, watching her exchange vows, I let myself believe we'd made it. The family drama, Dad's drinking, Vanessa's scheming, it all faded under the sound of waves and applause. I stood beside Chloe, my heart swelling with pride, thinking maybe, just maybe, we'd get through this day unscathed. That hope shattered the second we stepped into the reception. I spotted Dad by the open bar, his tie loose, a glass of whiskey in hand. Vanessa was glued to his side, her red dress too tight, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Micah squeezed my hand, his voice low. "You okay, Ava?" I forced a nod, pasting on a smile for Chloe's sake. "Gotta keep it together," I muttered, but my gut was screaming that trouble was brewing. The air felt thick, like the calm before a hurricane. As the night wore on, Dad's laughter got louder, his steps sloppier. He tried to dance, stumbling into a table, and guests started whispering. Vanessa just laughed, egging him on, but her eyes had a cold glint that made my skin prickle. Chloe pulled me aside, her voice trembling. "Ava, Dad's making a scene?" I could see the panic in her eyes, her perfect day slipping away. "I'll handle it," I said, trying to sound sure, but my heart was pounding. I approached Dad, who was attempting a clumsy two-step near the bar. "Dad, let's get some air," I said, keeping my voice calm. He waved me off, slurring, "I'm celebrating my girl's big day." Before I could press, Vanessa stepped in, her grip on his arm tight. "He's fine, Ava. Let him have fun." Her tone was sharp, like a blade. I squared my shoulders. This is about Chloe, not him making a fool of himself. Her eyes narrowed, and the tension between us crackled like static. You think you're so perfect, always meddling, she hissed. Mind your own business. The argument heated up fast. We moved to a corner near the dessert table, trying to keep it quiet, but our voices rose. You don't belong here. I snapped, my patience gone. What's your game with my dad, huh? Her face twisted, and before I could blink, she grabbed a champagne flute, smashed it against the table, and lunged at me with the jagged stem. Time slowed. The glass gleamed under the fairy lights. Guests gasped, and my heart thundered. I froze, thinking, I've ruined Chloe's day. Then Micah tackled Vanessa, sending the glass skittering across the floor. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed, tables tipped, and security rushed in, pinning Vanessa as she shrieked. Chloe's face, pale and horrified, was the last thing I saw before the police hauled Vanessa away in cuffs. The days after the wedding were a haze. I couldn't sleep without seeing that jagged glass flashing in Vanessa's hand, hearing the screams, or picturing Chloe's devastated face. I'd promised her a perfect day, and instead, I'd brought a nightmare. Guilt ate at me, heavy and relentless. Micah was my anchor, holding me when the panic hit, whispering, You're safe, Ava. It's over. But it didn't feel over. How do you move on when your dad's girlfriend tries to attack you at your sister's wedding? How do you face your sister when her dream day is now a town scandal? Chloe was a wreck. A week later, I visited her at her small house, wedding gifts still stacked unopened in the corner. She sat on the couch, staring at nothing. All that planning, she whispered, her voice raw. And now, everyone's talking about the day someone tried to hurt my sister. I knelt beside her, tears stinging my eyes. I'm so sorry, Chloe. I should have stopped it. She shook her head, but her silence said it all. She was hurting, and I felt like the cause. It's not your fault, she finally said, but her words felt hollow, like she was trying to convince herself. Dad made it worse. He called non-stop, leaving voicemails that twisted the knife deeper. Ava, don't make a big deal out of this. Vanessa was just upset, he slurred in one. I couldn't believe it. He was defending her after everything. One evening, he showed up at my apartment, reeking of bourbon, his eyes bloodshot. Pumpkin, we're family, he pleaded, swaying in the doorway. We gotta stick together. Something in me hardened.
No, Dad.
You chose her over us. We're done. Shutting the door on him felt like cutting off a piece of myself, but I couldn't keep letting him drag us down. Harper, bless her, wouldn't let it go. She came over one night, her arms full of papers. Vanessa's got a rap sheet, Ava, fraud, theft, you name it. My stomach churned as I read the documents. Worse, we found bank statements linking Dad to Vanessa's scams, transfers from his account to hers, thousands gone. He knew, Harper said softly. He was in on it. The truth hit like a tidal wave. My dad, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, wasn't just a victim. He'd betrayed us. Telling Chloe was brutal. We sat in her kitchen, her tears falling as she whispered, I don't even know him anymore. I didn't either, and that broke something deep inside me. All I could do was hold her hand and promise we'd get through this, together. The months after the wedding were like rebuilding a house after a hurricane. The pieces were scattered, some broken beyond repair, but I was determined to find solid ground. I started seeing a therapist, Dr. Ellis, a kind woman with a knack for cutting through my walls. Ava, you're carrying so much guilt, she said one afternoon, her voice gentle. But you didn't cause this. You're grieving the dad you thought you had. I stared at my hands, fighting tears. Shouldn't I hate him for what he did? She shook her head. Feel what you feel. There's no rulebook for this. Her words stuck with me, and slowly, I started to untangle the mess of anger, betrayal, and love I still had for Dad. It wasn't easy, but it was a start. Chloe and Nate gave me hope. They decided to renew their vows, this time in their backyard, with just a handful of us under a canopy of string lights. Nate winked at Chloe, slipping a ring on her finger. Second time's the charm, right? Chloe laughed, her eyes bright for the first time in months. Watching them, I felt a warmth spread through me. We were healing, stitch by stitch. My own life started to bloom too. A big client hired me for a national campaign, a dream project that had my designs plastered across billboards. Micah hooped when I told him, pulling me into a hug. "You're killing it, Ava. Always knew you would." Vanessa's trial was the final hurdle. The courtroom was tense, packed with reporters from Harper's paper. I sat rigid as evidence piled up, her scams, her lies, and Dad's role in it all. He was there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him, his face etched with shame. When it was my turn to speak, my hand shook, but my voice didn't waver. "That night left scars," I said, staring at Vanessa. "But it also showed me what I'm made of. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor." As she was led away in cuffs, sentenced to years behind bars, I felt a weight lift. It wasn't just closure, it was freedom. A month later, we celebrated, me, Chloe, Nate, Micah, and Harper, at a beachside restaurant, toasting my big contract and our survival. Chloe raised her glass, her smile wide. "To Ava, the strongest person I know." I laughed, clinking my glass with hers. "To all of us, for choosing family that fights for each other." As we laughed and swapped stories, the ocean breeze carrying our voices, I realized something. The past year had been hell, but it showed me who mattered. Chloe's loyalty, Micah's steadiness, Harper's fierce support. It taught me I could face anything and come out stronger. My scars weren't a weakness. They were proof I'd fought for something better. To everyone who's followed this journey, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, heartbreak, and hard-won triumphs. If my story hit home, hit that subscribe button and join us, where every scar tells a story of resilience, love, and starting over. Keep fighting for your own truth, and I'll meet you on the other side.